Can my experience with Heretic prepare me for Hexen? No. Watch me get my ass kicked on this episode of Saturn Archives. Well, you've probably seen this cover before, maybe on a store shelf, maybe for a different platform, because the Saturn version really isn't any different. No unique art, no exclusive pictures, just this is it, Hexen Beyond Heretic. It's cool, don't get me wrong, but nothing too exciting here. So this is going to be a pretty skimmed through version of the manual, because it is full of text and only some of it's pretty relevant to the gameplay that's coming up. Let's get started with the story so far. The elders tell of the adventures of a heroic Sidhe elf who challenged the forces of Disparl, the weakest of the three-dimension-traveling serpent riders. His victory was hardly insignificant, but while he battled Disparl, the other two serpent riders were far from idle. They were hard at work sowing the seeds of destruction in several other dimensions. One such dimension is Kronos, the world of Hexen, a human world, but one where the forces of magic are both stronger and more strictly controlled than those of the elven world. The humans have learned from painful experience that while magic can be a powerful tool, it also contains more destructive potential than any other force in their universe. From this harsh realization, a disciplined and orderly society has developed, one where every citizen knows his place and where the vast majority of common men are held in thrall to a few ruthless, powerful leaders. Wielding magical powers and arcane artifacts, these men overshadow every other human force on Kronos, suppressing individual thought and action in the name of the greater good. Within this strict order, three organizations maintain the fabric of human society: the Legion, the Arcanum, and the Church. In an uneasy balance often threatened by petty squabbles and escalating power struggles, these three organizations share absolute dominion over all humanity. The Legion represents human military strength, using brute force backed by magical weapons to impose a strict and inflexible order upon the populace. The Arcanum is the center of learning for all magical studies, and as such it determines who will or will not have access to its wealth of arcane secrets. The Church acts as a bridge and buffer between the Legion and the Arcanum, using a mixture of magic and military training to maintain the balance of power while secretly furthering its own interests. Together or separately, these three groups control every aspect of human life. Each organization is led by a single man: Zedek, Marshal of the Legion; Tridactus, Grand Patriarch of the Church; and Menelkir, Archmage of the Arcanum. These men are the ultimate embodiment of power on Kronos. Cold, calculating, and devoid of concern for anything but the advancement of their own status, these leaders were the first to fall under the sway of Korax, the second of the three serpent riders. In return for their allegiance, Zedek, Tridactus, and Menelkir were rewarded by Korax with the dark gift of unlife. Using the powers granted them by Korax as well as the relics already in their possession, all of humanity quickly fell under their spell. Only 3 humans escaped the aegis of the leader's new powers: Baratus, a warrior of the Legion; Daedalon, the mage of Arcanum; and Parias, a cleric of the Church. Now these 3 have sworn to destroy the leaders they once followed, and anything else that gets in the way as they execute their task. Entering the mystical portal used by Korax to reach their world, the 3 become hopelessly separated, forcing each of them to attempt on their own that which they had little hope of doing together: find Korax's stronghold, defeat his legions of grotesque minions, and finally destroy the Serpent Rider himself. Their task will be a difficult one indeed. It is well known that Korax's special powers stem from his control of the Chaos Sphere, which he uses to warp and corrupt everyone and everything he touches. Though not the mightiest of the Serpent Riders, Korax is far more powerful than Disparl was, and his lust for power is matched only by his hatred for all living things not under his control. Can he be vanquished? Only time will tell. Ooh, that was a bit of a mouthful. Next up is the object of Hexen. Whether you choose to play as the warrior, the mage, or the cleric, the ultimate goal of Hexen is the same. You must defeat Korax, the second of the 3 deadly Serpent Riders, the first one we tackled in Heretic, probably. The task is not an easy one, however. Along the way you must destroy hundreds of Korax's vile minions and learn the secret of his stronghold if you wish to progress to the final confrontation. So then it goes on to tell us about hub play, which of course it's a bunch of central cores known as hubs. Each hub, a bunch of different sub-levels. You gotta get to each hub several times apparently and explore all the levels. Pretty straightforward. Character classes, also again straightforward. It's going to change your stats, the weapons you get, and then strategies for each class. Several things are affected by the character class you choose. For example, each class uses different weapons, and certain artifacts work differently in the hands of different characters. Most importantly, however, each class has its own fighting style and its own unique abilities and limitations, so you'll have to bear those abilities in mind when you fight or try to solve a problem. Now let's go over those character abilities. Because, again, this is a very lengthy manual, we're going to go ahead and skip right to the class that I chose. And that class would be the Cleric. Daedalon, physically weak but strong in spirit, Daedalon weaves the very fabric of reality with his powerful spells. He is an expert at destroying his foes from afar, eliminating creatures with magical attacks before they can get close enough to injure him. However, this useful ability is counterbalanced by his poor speed and strength, and the weakness of his armor. If you choose Daedalon, you must choose your battles carefully, maximizing the effectiveness of your ranged attacks and finding some way to compensate for your lack of speed and jumping power. I find that a little strange, because that sounds a lot like the description for the mage, who I didn't play. But whatever, that's what the manual says. And once again, we're going to go ahead and we can of course look at all the weapons here. So instead of having a number of weapons, like in Doom, for example, there is a number of weapons, but each class only gets a couple of them. So let's just skip straight to Cleric. Mace of Contrition. The mace will only cause contrition in an enemy after numerous beatings. This weapon should only be used as a last resort because of its short range. Which is funny because it took me quite a while to get something else, being the Serpent Staff. The essence of the sacred Kalrath Serpent is contained within this staff. Feed it with the blue mana and it will serve you faithfully by spitting twin venom spears at your enemies. Using this staff up close will drain your enemy's life and give some of it to you. That's actually something I didn't know. That would have been nice to know. I would have maybe tried that out a bit more while I was playing. But like usual, I'm doing this after the gameplay. Firestorm, a weapon I didn't end up getting. Firestorm spell lets you summon a gout of fire from the earth. The flames appear at your enemy's feet and roar upward to engulf his entire body, roasting him alive. All things considered, Firestorm is the ultimate barbecue. So that sounds a lot like that fire dude from Doom, the Archvile, I suppose. And then there's still one more at the top of the next page, and that's the Wraithverge, which is damn a cool name. A very powerful multi-part weapon. This staff will summon the forces of the grave to feed upon your enemy's soul, tearing and gnashing away at the life force like hungry dogs. And then after that we can see the mage also gets 4 weapons. The next page, the bottom of this page and the next one includes items and artifacts, of which there are many. I only get my hands on 2 in the game, so we're going to skip a lot of these. Same for the monsters. We're just going to read about the ones I encountered, because, again, lots of text here, as you can see. The Afrits. These gargoyles are more than happy to douse you in flames. The only nice thing about them is the satisfying splat they make when you shoot them from the sky. And then we see we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other monsters on this page alone. I didn't encounter any of these guys. In fact, Afrits wasn't even the first thing I encountered. And then we're skipping this top guy. One of the things I did encounter, again, still not the first thing, I don't know what particular order this is going in, is I did encounter a centaur. And are these pictures a little bit too small? Especially the centaur, he's just a little baby over there. Named after a mythical being, these monsters bear none of the pleasant traits attributed to them in legends. Vicious, brutal, and extremely hard to kill. Centaurs serve in the front ranks of many of the Serpent Riders' armies. They are capable of deflecting missiles with their shields, so use caution when attacking them. The next guy, this Lautar, I didn't end up encountering, but I did encounter a lot of these guys. The Etten. These horde creatures are all that remains of the once proud legionnaires. Less than human, they retain just enough of their memory to hate what they have become, and to hate you even more for what you still are. Fortunately for you, though, they are not particularly skillful foes. Unless, of course, you're fighting a lot of them at one time, then you're kind of fucked. The Chaos Serpent, and then we're on the ones without pictures, which I'm assuming are bosses, like Zedek. Then on the next page, Traductus, Menelkir, and Korax. Some of those names we're recognizing from the story description. And that's pretty much all there's really worth seeing in this manual. Of course, there's a lot I didn't read, but because there's a lot I didn't encounter, and I didn't want to take up too much time before we get to it. So without further ado, here it is. Okay, first things first, this has been sitting at the main menu for a while, because I'm just preparing to stream it, preparing to record it, And in order to play that opening video sequence again, I gotta let it loop a couple times. So we're gonna be skipping a demo, probably a demo or two before we get to that video. Unless it's already played through enough demos since the last time. Show me that opening. Oh yeah, here we go.
Time and space lies the realm of the Chaos Sphere. For eons, the Serpent Riders, masters of the sphere, have traveled the dimensions sowing destruction. Disparal is dead. Korax, the second rider, threatens another world. The world of Hexen. Hexen, a world where magic's legacy has spawned corruption. Three powers rule as one unholy trinity, each led by a single man, the warlord Zedek, High Captain of the Legion, is both judge and jury to all the peoples of Hexen. Traductus of the Church holds their souls in captivity. And Menelkir, the subtle master of the Arcanum, weaves his unholy magic to spread fear and weakness amongst all of their subjects. Restless in an uneasy alliance, these twisted leaders rule a twisted land, crushing absolutely all who would dare to oppose them. Today, they will trade their worldly power with Korax for the dark gift of unlife and a mastery of forces more terrible than even their depraved minds could ever imagine. From the ranks of corruption, three heroes emerge, fighting for a single cause: the destruction of the masters they once served. Their names will become a thing of legend. Baratus, Daedalon, and Parias must heal the world of Hexen for all time. The world must undergo a testing. A journey must begin.
Alright, now that we've watched some sloppy old CG and gotten a feel for this Hexen, a Beyond Heretic, let's dive into this Diablo Hexen universe. Alright, so who do I want to be? I mean, they gave them names just now in the cutscene. And I believe they give them names in the instruction manual. But like usual, I haven't, I'm doing the gameplay portion of the video before the manual, although I did look at it briefly, and there's a lot of reading. So forgive me if some of the reading in the manual was repeating what was in the cutscene just now. So they have individual stats too. The fighter, obviously, fighter has high everything but no magic. Cleric, a little reduced all around, but still all around. And then the mage lacks pretty much everything except magic and a bit of strength. I'm gonna go with the cleric. Let's go a little well-rounded. And why don't we just pick this? There's a lot of difficulties here. Altar boy, acolyte, priest, cardinal, pope. Why don't we just go with acolyte? So if you watched the last video of the Saturn archives, you'll note that it was Doom. And so I thought, you know, I'm still feeling like first-person games, and maybe we should play one that runs a bit better. So I was under the impression that a lot of people were happy to tell me that the Doom port was sabotaged intentionally by John Carmack or something like that. Oh, that's very, very dramatic. But you know what? It's fine. Doom's on everything. You don't need Doom on everything. But hey, if the Saturn port's bad, no big deal. Just play it on anything else. Okay, B is to do things. A is to swing my mace. And this runs, I mean, let's be real, this is a Doom-like. I think it was the same engine on PC. Don't quote me on that. It probably was, let's be real. there was only one engine back then. And it was the Doom engine. Until there was two. The Doom engine and the Quake engine. Or at least as far as I am concerned. So I believe, unlike Doom, but much like Quake, which I was probably definitely better, this is, it starts off with a hub world. I played a lot of Heretic on the PC, not a lot of Hexen. Why don't we just go to this one? Is this the thing I can go to? Ah. Wow, wow, okay. Oh, and you're here now. What does this do? I just do the beat and retreat trick? You too? Oh, look at these fucking traps. Oh, there we go. That's the secret. So, right off the bat, we can tell this runs a bit better than Doom. Not a whole lot, admittedly. Hit that switch to open the door directly from me. Oh, many doors. And then open this door. Okay, we're moving on. We're getting somewhere. Oh, hello. Oh, I'm gonna do the old beat and retreat. You got a bit of sidestep to you. Ah. Oh, there's many of them. Oh, I actually got a wee bit of range on this. I don't even have to press right up against it. See, I was trying to press right up against him. Trying to get a little intimate. I see that. I see now that was not necessary. It's gotta... Oh, there's a button. Now where's that? Now I have the emerald key. I'd probably get smooshed if I wasn't careful. Ooh, let's go. Oh no. Okay, alright. Is that not a thing I can do? Oh wow, I have a jump? I'm gonna be real, I wasn't expecting a jump. And I most certainly didn't expect it to be on Y. Oh, Z is to look up and down. Okay, X seems to be sprint. Alright, that was the trick. Oh! There we go. So this first stage, right off the bat, not super obvious what you're supposed to do. It doesn't give you a lot of direction. I mean, in Doom it was pretty straightforward. It was always just get to the exit. This one just kind of drops you here. And it's like, well, yeah, you'll figure it out. Where enemies just keep coming back. I mean, I don't think that's a thing, right? Enemies don't come back. I think they're just spawning based on what I do and what my progress is. Where was I supposed to use this green key now? Okay, so I change weapons by holding Z and pressing right or left. There's flying, which is a thing I don't have yet, probably. And then map is Z and C. And Z and Y to recenter? What a mess. There's so many controls in this. Oh, are there ways to go that way that I just didn't see? Oop. Oh yeah, the green door is just around this corner. Well, I should have checked my map earlier. Then this area is very blurry, a little hard to see. Oh, I fucking knew there'd be guys. Now, I haven't picked up any new weapons yet, so I'm going to assume I don't have anything more than just this mace right away. But why don't we... Yep, holding Z, pressing left and right. It's not changing my weapon. There's a... You know, I was talking earlier of how I'd like to see Doom get the treatment that... Or how I'd like to see Quake getting the treatment that... Let's look up. There we go. How I said I wanted Quake to get the treatment that Doom has been getting with 2016. Oops. 2016 and Doom Eternal. But hey, you know what has gotten even less attention? How about Hexen and Heretic? I mean, this setting's pretty cool. It's medieval. It's very Diablo-like. People like Diablo. I don't particularly like Diablo, but I know people do. Oh, there's many of them now. I remember Heretic 2 being a bit of a deviation. It was like a third-person shooter. I played it a little bit when I was much younger, and it didn't really stick with me. Wasn't really feeling it. One thing I was testing out, because I wanted to see what was in the... I looked up cheats for it, because I'm not using any right now. But it's always interesting to see what kind of stuff the game's, you know, gonna give you, and what kind of fun stuff you can do. Because there's always, especially in these older games, since, you know, newer games are all trophy and achievement based, so they don't really have cheats for the most part. But it's cool to see, like, if a game's particularly hard and you don't get to appreciate all the cool level designs and all the monsters. For example, I'm playing on the 2nd difficulty, and my ass is getting kicked quite a bit. Is this bread just on the ground? I can't... Am I not eating this bread? Does bread not give me life? I eat bread every day, like in real life, and I've been alive for a while. Actually, why don't we examine this thing a bit more?